Every major economy today runs on debt. In 2025, the total global debt surpassed $324 trillion, more than 3 times the world's total GDP. Governments borrow, corporations borrow, households borrow. But if everyone owes money, who exactly is owed? This question exposes the hidden architecture of the global economy, a system where money itself is created from debt. And that system is now approaching its limits. According to the IMF and OECD, public debt alone has now exceeded $100 trillion and is projected to reach nearly 100% of global GDP by 2030. The bond market, the backbone of this system, has nearly tripled since 2007. Debt isn't a flaw in the system. It is the system. Every major institution relies on these IOUs as collateral to move money safely through global markets. Here's how the machine works. When a government borrows, it issues bonds, contracts that promise repayment with interest. These are auctioned to primary dealers, mostly large financial institutions, through regular Treasury auctions. Once issued, they circulate endlessly, traded, leveraged, and repurchased by central banks to regulate liquidity. This cycle doesn't just fund spending, it creates the collateral that keeps the entire financial system functioning. The reason this matters is simple. Modern finance runs on trust and collateral. Every loan, repo, and derivative contract depends on the existence of safe assets. And those assets are government bonds. Debt isn't just how nations fund themselves. It's how money itself circulates. Without continuous borrowing, the financial system would lose its most essential ingredient, liquidity. Take the United States. The Treasury auctions securities weekly, bills, notes, and bonds, totaling trillions annually. Primary dealers bid, the lowest yields win, and those securities become the world's benchmark for risk-free assets. Later, the Federal Reserve buys some of these bonds through quantitative easing, injecting dollars into circulation. When it sells or lets them mature, liquidity tightens. That's how debt issuance literally manufactures or drains the supply of money. As of mid-2025, foreign investors hold roughly $8.5 trillion of U.S. Treasuries, about a third of America's publicly held debt. Japan leads with over $1.1 trillion, followed by China at around $730 billion. But nearly 2/3 are owned domestically by American banks, pension funds, mutual funds, and the Federal Reserve itself. When people say China owns America, the truth is the U.S. mostly owes money to itself. In 2022, the Federal Reserve began shrinking its balance sheet, selling bonds it once bought during stimulus years. This quantitative tightening removed over $2 trillion of liquidity from the system. As central banks retreat, governments must rely more on private buyers, meaning higher yields, higher borrowing costs, and more fragile confidence. Interest flows upward. Bondholders earn, taxpayers fund the coupons. That's why inequality often rises with rates. Debt becomes a transfer mechanism from those who work to those who own assets. Under Basel III, only top-rated sovereign bonds count as Level 1 liquid assets. That status guarantees permanent demand for government debt. Gold and crypto remain outside this tier. Confidence is literally written into regulation, and it keeps the machine alive. As central banks step back, private capital fills the gap. Money market funds, insurers, and corporates now hold record amounts of T-bills. Even Berkshire Hathaway parked over $300 billion in short-term U.S. paper. Debt isn't just an obligation. It's the world's favorite investment vehicle. The $300 trillion system endures because it turns promises into products. As long as confidence holds, governments can roll over their debts indefinitely. But if trust breaks, rates spike, and the loop stops. So ask yourself, if interest costs stay high, should nations lock in longer-term bonds now for stability, or stay short to stay flexible? Which would you choose?